Wake up, buy here, pay here people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhoads on the Buy Here, Pay Here Morning Show. Take it away, you two.
Hey, good morning.
Hello, happy Wednesday from Oklahoma.
Yep, still here.
Yep, in my mother's home in western Oklahoma on the back patio. We'll see if we get any noisy trains or barking dogs in the neighborhood.
It's okay. It's a really, it's a nice place to do this from.
Yeah, you may hear the dove cooing in the background.
Yeah,
so.
that's something that comes from your background, something you remember an awful lot of when growing up.
Yeah.
We have any announcements?
No, just kind of quick
Okay.
update. You know, I spent the first part of this week, I went down Sunday to Dallas and was able to connect with a cousin on the way down. I was able to meet with two established and successful dealers on Monday, and then have a nice dinner with my daughter on Monday night and back to here yesterday. And I got to tell you, I had a really wonderful time talking to my aunt on the way back through. I was able to stop at that barbecue place. So kind of significance
Where's
of that.
at?
It's in a little town of Bridgeport, Texas. So it's kind of in between here and Dallas, and I was near Decatur, and I was able to get off the highway and meet them for a barbecue lunch at a restaurant that the son-in-law owns, and so it was just really nice to be there again. And this is the same one where my great-grandparents' photos
are on the men's and women's bathroom.
Yeah. And so my aunt actually did the framing of a lot of that stuff, and so they put it in that. So it's just my family history, you know, is tied to that area, and so it's just kind of fun. It was wonderful to see them and get a little time with them.
And you know, when you said you met with some dealers, drove down to Texas to do that. One of them actually flew in from out of state, so the three of you got a real interesting testament to V8 and the connections that are made through V8 and being able to pull dealers together that want to learn from each other. And it's just really it's something that is a huge benefit to any dealer to be able to connect like that deeply. So
I was able to get to know one of the new dealers in a V8 group, and was also able to share with them kind of the direction of V8 and White Hat Way, and help them kind of understand what it can look like for them. And the reception was excellent. The feedback was excellent. And
they got corn and
I took some sweet corn from Oklahoma.
Cookies. I made cookies.
Yep.
I mean, you know, that's just, it's like we're in the kind of middle of America, honey, where all the farmers are, and it's just what you do.
This is
and I'm loving it.
It's kind of a shame to have to tell you this, but the cookies didn't make it all the way to Dallas. They didn't.
I sent you with like 4 dozen cookies. Dang, that breaks down to about 1 an hour or less.
Most of them ended up with Aaron. So
okay, very good. And I also got to visit. He got to visit his daughter too on the way down.
All good.
Okay.
No, no other announcements from here. We're just back in Oklahoma, going to be here for a few more weeks resolving some business. But what prompted today's conversation, unless you have anything else, we'll dive in.
No, yes. Well, we had the opportunity last week to empty out his mom's storage unit.
Right.
And it's funny because most people are like, she had a storage unit? Yes, she did. And the things in there, it's Oklahoma and they get dust storms, and it's just like gets super, super dusty. And so everything in there had a thick layer of dust, of like dirt, the wind blowing, hurricane kind of weather dust.
Yeah. And for those who don't see the podcast regularly, who'll be seeing this episode, my mother passed away last month, so we're here kind of dealing with estate matters, and the storage unit was among them. But one of the things that happened in going through the storage unit is we came across this old tube. It's a hard plastic tube.
It's long, it's big.
Yeah, initially the question was, do we just toss it? You know, it's an old map. And then I said, no, let me take it to Dad and see if it means anything to him. My dad is in a resort, which, by the
We
way,
call it an all-inclusive resort. It's actually a nursing home.
nursing home. My cousins really got a kick out of that yesterday. I told them that that's what we decided. I never know whether to call it a care facility, nursing home.
He and I kind of came up with that.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going back to the resort.
Yeah.
And
So anyway, we just we call it an all-inclusive resort. But anyway, I took it to Dad, and then and I was able to get him out of the facility for a day and take him to lunch. And we talked about that map and kind of what it represented. And as I heard him tell his stories, I became aware, and I'm going to do the best I can to, get through this without a lot of emotion, because it's a really rich and important thing. Because as I hear him tell the stories, it's a legacy story. It's like, this goes back probably 15 years. And the map is actually of ranches across eastern New Mexico, West Texas, and this is an area where my dad, in this context, he was meeting with ranchers and identifying places to do antelope hunts. Well, folks who don't know, my brother and my dad, for many years, after I left this area, they had an outfitting business, and my dad just always enjoyed the antelope hunts in particular. So he went to this country, and of course, having lived here, it's probably that area where he hunted is probably about 75 to 100 miles from here. But he knew a lot of ranchers and farmers from this area, and so as a result,
and this story actually also applies to this area here as well. I mean, because it's this whole thing is about a way of being with your neighbors and those that you do business with.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask our dealer listeners and others to I want to beg some patience, because there is a very much a tie-in to our work with White Hat Wednesday, and certainly our work in the car dealership world, and customer relations and all these kind of things. But I'm reminded, sort of the background of my growing up here, and then later going downstate to go to college, and going out and trying to meet with landowners about finding a place to hunt in that case. But everything we're talking about here with my dad also was, he would negotiate leases for cattle, grazing and all these kind of things. So it's back to this thing about a handshake, like the value of a handshake, and doing business without an attorney, doing business. In a lot of cases, those were done without a contract. There might have been a simple handwritten thing. I remember my dad drawing up contracts on a, loose leaf
napkin,
paper, and, just a simple little understanding to put something, a little more clear. But I think the real significance of all that is, how does one get in a foot in the door, and then keep it, maintain those relationships over years with these ranches who are very protective about their property.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, we drive around town and there are fences where there used to not be fences too. And lots of no trespassing. And so, I kind of I look at this, and you use the word bygone era of integrity and human connection. And it just makes me, I think there's a lot of lessons, and I don't think it has to be gone.
I agree.
I think it can be rebirthed, or it can be rejuvenated.
Well, it's trust and integrity haven't gone away. The way that it shows up and the way we sometimes conduct business can vary, and obviously we do have a lot more contracts and litigation maybe than we did before. But I'm simply saying, I watched it. I've talked about this in the podcast before. I've watched my dad do handshake deals over the years, and I've certainly done a few of them in my career and my work as well. I just know that that's part of what, in this country, and this is where kind of my whole basis of White Hat Way was sort of formed, and growing up in this country, and kind of seeing what a white hat cowboy is, what we chose to represent, this integrity. But obviously farmers, ranchers, other folks in this country, there's a fabric to this area. And my dad in particular, I just kind of thought this was an opportunity to kind of, pay a little respect to his legacy, as he sits in that resort, that all-inclusive resort, and in his golden years. I just think it's important to think about, how his own integrity shapes the lessons for me, what I witnessed in business. And kind of the best way to know that, Michelle, is not you hear his stories, but to hear others
talk about
him and
Yeah.
what they witnessed him do, and
Yeah.
observations about him as a neighbor and as
Yeah.
a farmer.
And those things are earned, and they were
Right.
even earned back then. They need to be earned today. That level of trust,
Sure.
and because people they're guarded, and you just don't let anyone
Yeah.
into your property, to your into something that you have you're a steward of.
Sure.
And it really it's been really amazing to hear the stories of what those kind of business relationships were like, and they had ups and they had downs, and they had hard things that came across, and they still left as friends because they had a huge trust deposit bank.
Yeah. And I think one of those stories, and again, you can hear in this story how you could apply this in your own work and in your own business in the buy here, pay here, lease here, pay here space. Dad relayed a story about, and think about this compared to the other, like you've had ranchers who allowed somebody on their property for whatever reason, allowed them to come in and camp, or maybe it was a hunting thing, and they leave behind trash, or they leave a gate open and causes a big problem, or these kind of things where they just don't appreciate and respect the space. And compare that to a story that my dad told about how keep in mind, this is my dad's years where he was already aged. He was 70 years old plus, and so he was in this country doing these deals with these ranchers. And he went out on a ranch. I remember he was telling a story about he noticed that one of the windmills and one of the pastures wasn't working. A lot of these.
So the windmill it just naturally pumps water to the surface, usually for cattle troughs.
Right. So there's usually a tank, and so the wind, charges the thing and puts water in the thing. There's usually a little safety there to keep it from just overflowing. But bottom line is, Dad passed by and noticed that one of the tanks was dry. And he was able to reach out to the rancher and say, because, there are hired hands that are responsible for those kind of things. It wouldn't be something Dad would be, but because he was aware, he was familiar with that sort of thing. He was able to call the rancher and say, that windmill is not working in the east pasture, as an example. I don't remember if it was east pasture, but your east pasture, and those cattle are having to walk about 2 miles to get to water. And so you don't have to be a cattle person to know that that's not the way to get your cattle fat. That's not the way to have your cattle do well on pasture. And so he was able to say, I can tell you what's wrong with it. He told the rancher, he said, but I can't climb up there myself, but he was able to tell the rancher. And the next day, Dad said when he went out the next day, the hired hands were out there working on it immediately.
And we, in our day-to-day, is like these kind of way of interacting with people are their foundation to White Hat Way. And when I think about this, is I think about dealers in a neighborhood or in a city, and they have and your dad, even when he was farming and had a farm right next door to him that was competing in the same market as he did, they help each other.
Right.
And they look out after each other, and they want the success of both.
Sure.
And that is really transferable into this industry where, and I see sometimes where it's like, I don't want to share. I don't want to, it's like, oh, look, they're doing this thing is happening. Well, that just means less competition or whatever. That's not being a good neighbor.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if the dealership, like a farm, is right next door and you're both growing wheat and you both need to, whatever. They always looked out after each other. And they both can be successful because there are buyers for all of the wheat, just like there are buyers for all of the cars.
Right. That's a good way to think about it. I think one of the other examples I remember as a young guy, teenager, I remember in this country when there were blizzards, right? You'd have these big snowstorms, and in this country, often the snowstorms are accompanied with wind, and so you'd have these big drifts. And folks who haven't grown up in this kind of thing don't know that is frightening to the cattle, and the cattle just end up going through fences, and so it's really a disruptive event when that happens. And it's one of the things I remember is just watching how people rallied, like
to help each other out.
They came from everywhere to help one another, and it was just such a thing to observe. Is like it's and I'm not saying that this exactly happens in a car dealership world, but it's like this idea that we got to be neighborly. We think about our customers as neighbors in a community, and when we think about how can we use our own resources to help others, this is the part that I think is the thing that I recognize about this country, and that's the idea of being neighborly. It sounds corny sometimes to some.
It's not.
In reality, it's an important thing that we need to think about in terms of a community in our business, in any business.
Yeah. We spoke years ago at Buy Here, Pay Here United on the idea that
are we going to drop?
I'm hoping that we're not.
Our battery's failing, so
on.
stand by, folks. We'll make sure we don't lose the connection, but I think we'll probably be fine. But just in case, we'll make sure that we have both devices powered.
But we spoke on how Buy Here, Pay Here is like a chicken sandwich, and it was talking about Chick-fil-A. Now, Chick-fil-A, one of the reasons why they have such a good reputation in Middle America and most of America is they show up for their neighbors. They show up as a business when there is some kind of catastrophe. When, like I have heard so many stories of there was a major catastrophe, the fire, the police, or floods, whatever it was, and they bring in food, and they do what they can do. They volunteer, they help. That's what being a good neighbor, even in a city, looks like. Right. It's like being there, showing up, being aware of what's happening at your neighbors. We walk around our lives in cities like this, and we don't look up and look at people. And so we don't pay much attention to what's happening around us and with our neighbors. And it's not about being nosy, but it's just about being aware. And that's, one thing that I've watched and really have a lot of respect for here is that people are aware of their neighbors. Right. They care about their neighbors. And it's, as a business owner, we have anywhere. You can be in the middle of Atlanta, Georgia, and you can still care about your neighbors and be, looking out for them. And it's not about I'm going to do this because I'm going to get something. Right. You do this because this is what being a good neighbor, and you want your business's neighborhood to be a place that everyone succeeds, and that people feel some level of safe or whatever in it. Yeah.
And I think this is, in White Hat Way, we talk a lot about having a business that is, one, successful and sustainable, right? Yeah. We want to have a business that obviously it has to stick around. Yeah. And so that means we have to make sure that we have a good bond with our community. We have a good connection, and that's how we really stick around and last, and how we do business tomorrow. And so these things, when you think about in this context of, what happened with my dad and these business relationships, is like just making sure that you are true to your word, that you do what you say you're going to do, you follow through, you do the right thing by people, and you take, in this case, you take great care with the property and the relationship, to really honor the relationship and make sure that, it's that we're follow through on those things. So this is part of what, with White Hat Way, is part of what we teach, and we want to encourage folks to recognize the value of playing a long game and going beyond transactional, and being able to, just conduct business in a way that we have a chance to earn not only the payment that's due today, but a good relationship with that customer, and the referrals that could come next week, and the repeat business, and all this kind of thing is really where you start to measure, the benefit, that can happen in our business when we conduct ourselves in this way. So, and one of the closing thoughts as you were writing some things down was,
a challenge. And, all of you that are listening, to kind of think about this as you go throughout the rest of this day, and, see is like, what kind of legacy are you building? And are we conducting ourselves in a way that earns and keeps other people's trust?
Right.
We, even in big cities, there are always business owners that have been great in philanthropy and helping their neighbors and helping their communities, and in small and big, small and large ways. And when a funeral is unfortunately the time that people come out of the woodwork. And I have, through this experience of being here and seeing all of the people that Jim's mom touched their lives in business or as a neighbor or whatever. And I think to myself, what kind of legacy am I leaving? Am I stepping in to help? Am I being a good neighbor? And watching out for my neighbors, and whether they be businesses or where I live, and what kind of legacy are we leaving? And so my personal challenge is take the blinders off and see and be aware of what's going on around you. And anyone, if you looked for one way in your business's neighborhood, one way a day that you can help someone or something that's not on your business, but one of your neighbors or someone that's in the area, I think most of us could find one thing that they could do. And and it doesn't have to be once a day, even it's like once a week or whatever, but that you're looking for ways. We get so tied up and so busy in keeping our bills paid and inventory in, and how is everything flowing, and are people showing up at work, that we forget that we are a community, and that humans are not meant to be isolated. And that's even as a business, is that businesses are part of a community as well. And so my challenge to you is take the blinders off and see what it is that you can do to be an asset to your community.
And my challenge to dealers in particular would be to think about, when you think about a winning strategy in marketing, think about how to get better at selling trust, how to demonstrate and transparency, and how this idea of, one of the things that was talked about in my meeting with the dealers was this idea of the golden rule, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. And I think the key word in that, when I think about that on the drive home, is the word do. It's like actions, right? It's like show and do the things that will show you as trustworthy. And when you can win on trust, that's a great way to separate yourself in a marketplace. Absolutely. And to not only win customers today, but to win year after year and establish a legacy, not just in your community and with your customers, but also with your team. So that would be my challenge for this Wednesday.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
What else you got? This is like a super heartfelt.
Just covers a dusty tube in a storage unit.
It all comes from a dusty tube.
Sparked a conversation, but it's significant. It represents something important, and it's one of those intangible things that can be hard to articulate. But we accept the challenge, and we work always with them to part of the community. We just want to make sure we stay in touch, and that as we build on the White Hat story, that many of you can join us and tell your own version of that story.
And Vic, good morning.
Hey,
good afternoon. Vic. And thank you for your
great to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everybody, we know you're busy. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate you being part of our community, and we just will continue to give. Jim is going to be posting a blog post kind of along this story, so please be watching for it. It will be on our website probably later today, And we just really appreciate you all and are grateful for our buy here, pay here, lease here, pay here community.
Yeah.
Have a
Thanks for
great day,
joining us.
everybody. Thanks.
See you Friday.